All right. Hello, Minasan. We're here for the third installment of Tokyo House Party. And I'm here with Momo for your Momo moment. She just woke up from a nap, so she's a little more docile right now. And we have maybe more than a moment if we're lucky. We hope everyone had a great 2 weeks since we met last. Today is going to be action packed. We have so much new cool stuff for you today. To kind of get us rolling, though, we wanted to, at the beginning of every show, announce the winner from the last Tokyo House Party contest. And so we have drawn our random winner for this week, and it is Princess Reina. I don't know if Princess Reina is watching right now. Can we share her image so everyone can see? Cool. I can't see, just so you all know, so bear with me. I'm just shooting into the dark here. So yeah, congratulations to Princess Reina. They won a $50 gift card to Kizuki for their awesome Amabie drawing, their super flat Amabie from our mascots. And then also we wanted to announce that we are going to be hosting a very special edition of ASIN Anime Central 2 weeks from today. So we're going to be jumping into the virtual ASIN experience, and we're all really jazzed to add to that. So stay tuned and definitely come back next time. It's going to be really cool. So before we introduce our special guests in today's topic, I'm going to let Momo go because she's obviously kind of annoyed. And I wanted to note that we have everyone here, if everyone wants to join back in. Derek's here. And we have some special guests. So we have Van, who you've all met before as well. And he is always here for the last hour, DJing from his Animal Crossing house. But we also have a colleague and a friend and all over awesome person, Tom Gabouts, joining us today. He's an assistant professor at Northwestern University. He teaches Japanese literature and culture. So he's a really cool special guest, and we again have this really awesome community here in Chicago to kind of draw upon to have cool conversations. And the topic of today was actually suggested by Tom. So, and it was a little out of left field, and we're so glad to be jumping into this. So I am so glad to not be talking so much this episode. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom so he can kind of get us grounded in this topic.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. Cheers.
Kanpai.
So I thought I'd start off with a little anecdote. I've told this to some of you already. It's not exactly about lo-fi hip-hop, but I hope that the connections become clear. So a week or so ago, I was chatting with a friend of mine, Jason, if you're there, hey man, thanks for the inspiration. And he sent me a tweet of 2000 PlayStation game, Boku no Natsuyasumi. Do you got that one, Derek? Can you send that out to the viewers? They did, didn't they? Yeah, you guys played it? Any of you played it? Boku no Natsuyasumi? Yeah. Apparently there's some re-releases. There's a PSP and then more recent ones which are just coming out. So anyway, so it's this little clip from Boku no Natsuyasumi, my summer vacation from 2001. And this little, I think the concept is you're a 9-year-old kid in the Japanese countryside going around catching bugs and fishing and doing all those things that a 9-year-old Japanese kid's supposed to do over summer vacation. As Derek was just saying, we've all been locked up inside for a long time now, and we're all kind of starting to lose it. And I'm like feeling really sentimental and having strong emotional reactions to things. And so I saw this video, and I just found it so poignant, just like Derek just said, it hit you in the sweet spot,
Yeah.
If only that could be me running through those fields under that blue sky. And so I was like, oh, that's really poignant. But the more I thought about it, the sadder it seemed. Because we can't go outside. But then started to just kind of to bother me in a weird way, because the more I started to think about it, and I thought, well, this is a game that actually I've never played. I've heard of it, but I've never played this game. From 2000s, kind of primitive graphics, and it's depicting a landscape that I've never lived in. I visited the Japanese countryside, but I never lived there. I wasn't that 9-year-old kid. It's not my kokoro no furusa. It's not like my hometown. But nevertheless, I feel like this intense nostalgia for it, right? Yeah. But then the more you think about it, it's like, even then, even in 2000 when that game came out, then you could have gone outside. You could have just gone and done it yourself. But instead, you're playing this video game representation of this landscape. Right. And when you think about it from that perspective, it's actually kind of dark, because back then you had the choice. You could go outside, or you can sit in front of your TV playing a PlayStation game, and you are playing the PlayStation game. Now we don't have the choice. So I was just thinking about that and got really sad and also really angry about the situation that we're in right now. Now, I want to kind of circle back and talk about lo-fi hip-hop. But before doing so, there's one kind of, what's the term? Disclaimer I want to make, which is that the title for this talk, Now We Are All Lo-Fi Girl, which I'm really pleased about. I think it's really, really clever. But actually, it's not true, because we're not all lo-fi girl, because there are a lot of people who are still going outside. Who have been labeled essential workers precisely to the degree that they get paid shit for doing all these things that those of us who have the luxury to sit inside and keep doing our jobs, or those of us who have lost our jobs and don't have any choice in the matter, can continue to anyway, sit here and be on Zoom or whatever. That there are actually people who are outside, and for them, it's not like Boku no Natsuyasumi, and that's probably the most important thing to be talking about right now.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to, if I can chime in there too, Tom. When we actually all got together and spoke about this virtually, maybe last week. Yeah. And there's another disclaimer that I wanted to bring up, because I think it'll be relevant for any of our Tokyo House Party conversations, and that we are often talking about topics and cultures that are not necessarily ones that we have firsthand experience with. And though all of us are, researchers or scholars or artists or musicians who work with Japanese culture and art and music and history, often we are lacking the perspective and presence of someone from Japan here in our conversation. So we just want to kind of throw out there too that this is a conversation among friends, and we hope to keep including more diverse voices in our conversations too. So just before we kind of delve into this new topic, as a overarching disclaimer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. So just to try to tie this all back to lo-fi hip hop, I mean, building off that point, the thing about lo-fi hip hop is that it's not actually, it's not exactly Japanese, and the imagery that has been linked to this musical genre is derived from anime, but there's interesting things to talk about, and who is finding what kind of meaning and value in this music and this imagery. There's more we can talk about there, and probably it would be useful to start off with just some explanation for those in the audience who aren't really into lo-fi hip hop, sort of where this is coming from and what's the joke in the title, if you will. But I just want to start off by a brief synopsis of the kind of problem that I have in mind to talk about, whether we actually go down that path or not. So the basic idea, maybe Derek, maybe you can send out a link to the Chilled Cow stream.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Find that.
If anyone hasn't seen it before, it's this YouTube channel where the lo-fi girl, I think the technical meme term is study girl, is infinitely studying while listening to lo-fi hip hop beats to chill, relax, study, whatever. And the basic idea, I think we'd probably all agree, is that you look at this image and it's soothing and calming because she's chill, you know. And you put it on when you're working and maybe you don't feel so chill, but then you see this young woman is quite chill because she's got her lo-fi hip hop beats to help chill out with, and then you get some of that chill so you can keep working in a more chill mode. Personally, I'm not often that chill. But the question that I want to raise is in 2020, now that not all of us, but many of us have become literally, we're living as if we were Lo-Fi Girl. Does this image and does this music still have the capacity to bring us chill?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Van, could you chime in here and give us a little bit about what the history of lo-fi hip hop is? I feel like you're pretty well grounded in that, and why you think it's popular now.
Yeah.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, you can't think about lo-fi hip hop without thinking the godfather of the kind of proto lo-fi hip hop vibe, which is Nujabes, and he's a Japanese turntablist. He's considered one of the originators of that style, where he kind of made it more accessible by adding jazz influences to hip hop beats. So he's, you know, pretty much the biggest name in what would have been lo-fi hip hop back in the 90s or so. And funnily enough, he had a contemporary named Jay Dilla, which a lot of people are familiar with. And they both kind of dabbled in this kind of hip hop experimentation with samples and kind of like vintage melodies. And that was kind of like the beginnings of lo-fi hip hop. And so it's kind of appropriate that they use the image from the anime tying into lo-fi hip hop, because, you know, since he is a Japanese person, it kind of all flows together, and even the aesthetic of the music kind of harkens back to how Japanese people like to kind of combine two elements together that usually wouldn't be, and in this case it would be jazz music and hip hop. And you know, I think it's always important to look at who kind of set the, you know, the vibe for something before it even became popular. And Nujabes is definitely someone worth looking into if you want to find out more about the genre or experiment in creating the music yourself.
Yeah. And just like touching on real briefly as far as like the hip hop and the anime side, you know, my connection to that is exactly the anime aspect of it, and how I discovered you know, lo-fi hip hop specifically through Samurai Champloo. And you know, for a lot of other anime fans out there, that might be the I could say you know, it's fair to say it's pretty likely that might be a lot of other people's window into lo-fi hip hop.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we have Van in this conversation too, because the music that we spoke about last week was, in some ways, I think could be, you know, our topic today is a bit about escapism through these arts and through these medias, and, you know, past and present. But city pop, I feel like, you know, like lo-fi hip hop in some ways could kind of be a parallel and looking back to escape, like Back to the Future kind of a thing. And I wonder if that's why I think there is some overlap between city pop fans and lo-fi hip hop fans. And yeah, if you feel that like people looking to the past in their current place and time is another kind of expression of that.
Can I follow up on that and ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I thought the connection you're drawing between lo-fi hip hop and city pop is interesting, because there's like I think the missing link is like vaporwave. I'd be curious to have Van or any of your take on, to me, there's a huge aesthetic overlap between vaporwave and lo-fi hip hop, both in pure sound terms, but also in the kind of feelings that it's supposed to evoke. Not the same thing, but I think there are interesting parallels. Van, do you have any-
Sample-based music kind of draws on various inspirations, and sometimes it's more moody than anything else. And I think both vaporwave and lo-fi hip hop kind of they're evocative kind of genres where they want you to be in a specific mood, and it kind of becomes this thing where you listen to the music and you can't separate it from this mood that it kind of tries to get you into. So yeah, the whole vaporwave thing. There's a documentary being made right now actually called Nobody Here, and it's about the story of vaporwave and how sample-based music on the internet became such a sensation, and what the future for that might be. But yeah, that's a really interesting connection that you put together.
how do you compare if you were to characterize the mood that you associate with one versus the other? What would you say? Or like future funk or any of these other genres, or maybe closer to city pop. I'm just curious your take on the moods involved.
Well, vaporwave, it has this anti-capitalist kind of like plunderphonic kind of thing where it's about stealing, well, not stealing, but taking samples from things that people would otherwise consider obsolete. Music, 1990s commercials, background music, elevator music, and kind of repurposing it into something that's new, that's fresh, that has a new meaning. And I think lo-fi hip hop does that to a different extent. They're kind of on the same spectrum, but they kind of have different meanings and different purposes. But ultimately, it's the same method. They kind of just take samples and kind of repurpose them into a new vibe, a new mood. And I think it takes skill, it takes talent, and it's amazing what they're doing. I don't know what the future is for these genres, but they have a pretty powerful impact right now.
I think that's really great. When hearing about the explanation and hearing about its connection to other genres of music, I can't help but think about my own placement within each of these points that you're both making here. And I was curious to say, how do each of you attribute yourselves to either the genre of music or the lo-fi study girl, and sort of her roots and etc.
So can you just elaborate the question a little bit?
Yeah, as far as lo-fi hip hop goes, how might each of you attribute yourselves to lo-fi hip hop? What's your connection to it? How do you feel about it as an entire genre and general topic? And where do you place yourself when sort of identifying with it?
Oh, okay, yeah. Van, did you have a thought?
Sure. Well, I'm as someone who loves 70s and 80s music, that sort of style has a warmth to it, and the reason I gravitate to lo-fi hip hop so much is because the music production style, it is almost mainly based off of that warmth, that like vintage analog sound. Where you can hear crackling, it sounds like old vinyl, and that is one of the biggest kind of production styles for the genre. Like they want you to feel like it's old music, that it's been around for a long time, even though some 17-year-old just made it on his laptop a couple hours ago. And that sort of vintage nostalgia is so powerful that's what draws me to it, and that's what draws me to city pop and vaporwave. This false sense of nostalgia, I think it's something new for people, and it's a very powerful thing, and it's what really keeps me coming back to both lo-fi hip hop and vaporwave and city pop.
Yeah.
Right on.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I could chime in there, like, I think my experience with lo-fi hip hop is, in the past I had someone close to me who was very interested in lo-fi hip hop, and I learned a lot about it from that individual. And then I did a program at the Art Institute where I spend my day hours, or once upon a time did. Now I'm working from here, but I did a project there for a teen event. It's called Exuberous, and what we did is I developed this kind of like haiku you could make through sampling. And I asked them to come in and show teens is the term it's used. It's odd for me to say, but teens how to sample, and then also but mostly sampling sounds that make you feel like you want to be there. Like I picked some themes like that cloud looks like a rabbit, and then some kind of sounds that you might hear laying in the grass looking up at this cloud, and kind of pulling you into this moment that probably isn't real in any stretch. and then asking them to try and make their own samples. And what was really compelling about that event was that no one wanted to sample. It was a group of like maybe 30 different teens at any given time kind of coming in and out, and they just wanted to sit down and chill. So I was like, well, I feel like this is half successful and half a total fail, but I think it's kind of telling of how this genre works a little bit. You know, it's really something to be consumed and a bit passive. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way.
Right on. Tom, I think you were about to mention some things as well.
Yeah, I sort of lost my train of thought, but
it's hard to break away from you, Sarah. You brought up some good points, and I was like, there's something I want to say, but I
don't want to lose the thread.
That's okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Don't feel like you. I'm just like, that was my kind of entry into lo-fi hip hop music as well, and kind of that's the extent of my experience with it for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about how I encountered this music. It's not that interesting of a story. It's kind of old now. It's not new. This has been around for a bit, like at least what, 5 years?
I think that's a good rough estimate.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
At some point, I just noticed. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
At some point, I just noticed on YouTube there were all these videos. It wasn't at the time. It wasn't just Chilled Cow. There were a lot of different videos and different streams, and the thing that struck me was that they all use a particular type of image. That's basically anime, and not always, but almost always, like a adolescent girl relaxing. And some of them are slightly different. Some of them, well, there used to be more diversity in the type of images because it wasn't just Chilled Cow. They'll be like, okay, here's some girls sitting at a coffee shop talking and drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Or here's like a girl sitting in a spaceship playing video games.
Yeah.
Or here's someone lying down in a field. But you sense the commonality between all of these. And in particular, emphasizing like a strong, really specific aesthetic that has a strong an intense sense of alienation and loneliness, but paired with an intense sense of like intimacy and comfort. And since noticing that, I've just always been interested and curious about how this particular set of sounds and particular musical aesthetic got paired with this particular type of images, which is also associated with Japan and the kind of basically Orientalist fantasies that people in the English-speaking world project on Japan, and the sort of mood and kind of at least intended as therapeutic value that you're supposed to get out of that. I mean, that sounds really critical, but it's more I'm just interested in how that kind of these different aesthetics in both sound and visuals kind of came together, particularly linked to imagery surrounding Japan. We could talk a bit more about that, but actually there was an earlier question I had for Van. I was interested in you were talking about how the as it were, the lo-fi aesthetic and this kind of synthetic vinyl crackle is really powerful, but at the same time, you also labeled it as false nostalgia. And that tension is really interesting to me. I was wondering if you could say a bit more about that. And also, do you have any sense of like the prehistory of lo-fi hip hop? Because you started with Nujabes and Samurai Champloo, but I'm curious, and like it seems like there are earlier things that are doing similar things aesthetically, like Madlib or Quasimodo, even Wu-Tang. And I'm curious, like if you have any like more coherent narrative about, is there a linkage there? Did that kind of sound go to Japan and then get picked up, or if you have any more comments about like the prehistory of this genre, I'd be really curious to hear them.
Right. Well, I think everyone knows Wu-Tang Clan, and they were blending funk music and hip hop, and I think that is definitely a precursor to lo-fi hip hop. The rise of what is kind of the new Java's style of hip hop, kind of synchronized with the lost decade. So city pop was with the rise of the economic bubble, and then you have this lo-fi hip hop jazz fusion kind of stuff happening in the 90s, which is more a reflection of that generation than it is the bubble economy people. And a lot of records were traveling to Japan, especially Wu Tang Clan. A lot of these artists who were blending funk music at the time, and I think that's definitely a huge inspiration on a lot of these artists who were doing that specific sound, especially Jay Dilla and artists like that. And coincidentally, him and Nujabes and Jay Dilla were born on the same day, and I think they both died at 27. So it's kind of interesting because they were both contemporaries, and they had a kind of similar style. But as far as the fake nostalgia, that I actually want to speak about that a little bit more because a lot of the listeners for lo-fi hip hop are probably too young to remember what vinyl records sounded like and tape cassettes and all of that. So they're only going by kind of loosely based references and all this. So even though they never lived through that time period, they still get this nostalgic feeling somehow, and it's all related to these small aesthetic kind of like imperfections that they add to the music to make it sound less immaculate. Sound production nowadays, there's no fault in it. It's almost too perfect, and I think they are kind of swinging back to this sort of desire for music that has more of a man-made feel. It's something that feels like it was made by a band instead of a computer, or a music studio instead of a laptop. So that sort of thing. So it's just interesting to me that the core listeners are almost the majority of them are too young to ever have appreciated the actual warmth of a vinyl record, but somehow they can still listen to newer lo-fi hip hop songs and kind of get this nostalgic feeling, like it's almost wired into their DNA to appreciate it. I'm not sure, but it's definitely an interesting feeling.
Yeah.
Some of that, what you had said about that appreciation for nostalgia, I think we had talked on that a little bit before, and I think that's happening in, I would want to say, like multiple art movements, animation, film, music, games as well, and this infatuation, as you would mildly put it, where other people are trying to recreate the handmade process or recreate media that naturally natively sounds outdated in a bit of a way, and just as you had mentioned, getting that man-made feel. I think, yeah, I'm not sure the sort of endpoint that I was really driving in what I wanted to kind of place that, but mostly just agreeing with you and saying, like, even I'm participating in that and seeking out games that feel like they're on PlayStation 1, and listening to City Pop, specifically your channel, while I'm working on stuff. Yeah.
I wonder if I could ask you all why that is. Like, why? I mean, individually, we can make assumptions for others, but individually, why do you all feel that draw to it, that nostalgic feeling, and do you kind of interpret that as your own I guess, interest in escapism, or how do you feel that kind of connects in individual ways for you, I suppose?
Thoughts?
Somebody.
Can I ask a question from, or sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was going to let somebody else go. Can
I ask the question from a different angle?
Yes, please.
So why is that, or two questions. As I think Van is articulating, the lo-fi aesthetic, musically speaking, is this basically digital simulation of analog authenticity.
Right.
right? The question number one is, maybe it's not that interesting of a question, but why is that supposed to be comforting?
Yeah, I think kind of my question is, why are we even talking about this, I guess, right now?
Yeah.
Why? And it's not just lo-fi hip hop. Like, I think lo-fi hip hop is also on the same spectrum as ASMR.
Mm.
Why do you say so?
In the sense that that sort of quality of the sound, I think part of it is the production of this in the face of and through the fact that we are interacting entirely with technology, with digital technology. It's compelling because it gets like some kind of simulation of an intimate experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ASMR has a lot in common with lo-fi hip hop and vice versa in that regard. But maybe you all don't agree with me on that. That could just be my wacko theory. But like, why is that? Why do we find that soothing? And then the second question was, Derek, you talked a bit about how you dealing with similar things about nostalgia and nostalgic kind of citation of older materials and genres in games. Are there other connections you can make between all these issues in lo-fi hip hop and the kind of need for a sense of intimacy and intimate space in the face of some kind of sense of alienation in games, whether the ones you're working on or more broadly speaking?
Yeah.
Oop, you're echoing.
Let me. Yeah. So it was like I'm trying to take all of that in and compress it and then put it back out. I'm simultaneously like thinking deeply about that question as well as trying to answer it, because I think that main question of why lo-fi hip hop was one that gave me a little bit of pause, and I was like, I realize I really don't know, other than wanting to hear more of what Nujabe's kind of stimulated in the anime culture. So that's answering one portion of the question, at least for me. And as far as finding comfort and any other associations that I could make with lo-fi hip hop within video games or within interactive media, definitely have been other games that accentuate that cozy feeling, that sense of being in and being comforted by whatever environment that you're interacting with digitally. And so as of late, and especially amid a quarantine no less, I found myself not really engaging with a lot of games that are high action and I would say high velocity, like Apex Legends or any battle royale shooter game or anything like that. A lot of my experiences have really been mostly home building and Animal Crossing and seafaring and Sea of Thieves, and even that was probably the peak of the amount of action that I would see. But I find both of those games incredibly soothing. Animal Crossing because of the native day-to-day activity that you as a player are given, and kind of something that you could do passively without really feeling too heavily engaged. And I think even with lo-fi hip-hop, it's always sort of for me a passive genre of music that I'm always engaged with while doing something else. Taking that further to other games like Sea of Thieves that I had mentioned, it's sailing the seas and this sense of calm and sense of soothe that anything else that can hark to those feelings, I can just toss them all in the same bucket. So yeah,
I have a question to build on that, actually. So do you all feel that lo-fi hip hop, Animal Crossing, these places that we're kind of touching on now, do you find that is something you can ignore and that's what makes it lovely, or someplace you can feel safe? I feel like I'm hearing two different things a little bit. Like it's something that's kind of passive and you don't really have to be engaged. You're not really invested in it. But then conversely, you spend so much time in it. Is it all of the above?
So maybe it's I guess the best way to put it in my point of view is that it's meditative. you know, in the way of meditating, and doing that, like, yes, meditating is engaging your entire body and engaging you and even your mind, depending on, you know, how much time you spend. But it's also incredibly passive because you're just kind of there and you're just kind of letting whatever happen to you, and you know, letting yourself be rested in those things. And so I think there's a bit of synergy in a sort of passive engagement that's simultaneous. You know, am I doing it, or is it being done unto me, in that sense? And you know, I would absolutely get that out of Animal Crossing. You can flip the switch at any moment on, I am actively doing something in this game and trying to achieve something and pursuant of some sort of goal, or you're like, I'm just gonna walk around and shake trees all day and then I'm gonna turn it off.
The comparison, I think, with Animal Crossing is really interesting. Especially now. I mean, that so many people, it seems to resonate with our moment, and so many people are going to Animal Crossing as a kind of escape, but then it's also an ironic escape because Animal Crossing is basically work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same as the imagery of lo-fi hip hop, where it's like, this is chill ambient music. You listen to it and chill out, but it's an image of like a hell of inescapable perpetual work.
Yeah. Yeah, it really
Getting
is.
back to the problem that I'm trying to raise. Why does Animal Crossing soothe you now, even though it's just a more constrained, smaller space that you're trapped in and you're still working all the time?
Well, Animal Crossing is inconsequential, and you know, if something happens, it's like, oh no, and all of those reactions to the decisions that you make in that game are played out as being something cute, or by the fault of another animal, you know, villager that you have. And so, you know, I think for a lot of those games, I would say Animal Crossing, Sims, other simulator type games, it's playing with that playful chaos and that playful consequence, or knowing that the playful consequence kind of exists in front of you, and seeing, you know, what might happen. You know, you walk around in Animal Crossing, you're catching bugs, and if a tarantula bites you, you like pass the heck out. There's some really creepy moments that happen in that game, but you know, ultimately your character wakes back up and you proceed on. And so I think it's that compartmentalization and making consequences soft, that it makes the whole game feel soft and cute and, you know, unbothered.
Actually, I don't know if anyone is familiar with as a social philosopher. His name's Ernst Bloch. No, Tom, are you familiar?
Go for it.
So no, I think it's really interesting because he was someone who survived Nazi Germany as a Jewish American before he passed away. But he wrote, and Derek, I put the book in here because I felt like it's in such another lens to look at what we're talking about now. It's called The Principle of Hope.
Yeah.
And it really touches on utopian kinds of perspectives, I guess, and utopian manifestos, but also kind of the utopias and images of fulfillment, like the things that we're talking about now in Animal Crossing. However, kind of troublesome sometimes, I guess. They are an impetus for like radical social change. And so the ability to daydream and fantasize about these other spaces where you can build alternate ways of living, or even just, I guess, being able to see the whole world as being fundamentally different is so important for our own ability to make changes in our own lives, kind of, and see those actually feel like they could be real for ourselves. And as I was thinking about that, I wondered if, you know, things like Animal Crossing or lo-fi hip hop, these other places, I don't think it would be necessarily impossible that the kind of scene that girl hangs out in is something that has become art in life too, where people have kind of tried to recreate those same feels in their own space, and this kind of back and forth that might happen there. And if these kinds of alternate routes for living in these other worlds, these second lives, are really actually kind of important to making sense of your own world, I guess. Sorry, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, Derek, did you have?
No, I don't have anything to say. It's realizing that the idea of escapism and lo-fi hip hop, even though we're talking about things like Animal Crossing and anime aesthetic and how all of these things might tie together, it's just I guess it's unveiling itself to me how weighted of a thought it can be when trying to grapple with how we participate in escapism and what we might do and how all these things come together for us. And so everything that Sarah, you've brought up, and Tom, you've brought up, Van, all these questions are these questions have depth to them, and it's trying to reach some portion of that in answering that. I think, at least for me personally, gives me a lot of pause and going, oh wow, like, dang, I got to figure this out. So that's I'm just commenting, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also trying to become more comfortable with ambiguity. This is my life challenge. So, sometimes there isn't an answer. Sometimes it's A, B, C, and X, and all of the above,
Sure.
and 1, 2. It's like, it's tough though. I think we all strive for that like clear, definition. But I think it's so interesting. The other thing I wondered because I don't know a lot about it, but after you've been saying, Tom and Van, both that like all these lo-fi hip hop channels and all of this aesthetic revolves around a girl. Whether it's like an anime girl or a regular girl, why is it a girl and who is she?
Who is she?
Yeah.
Great question.
Tom, do you want to answer that?
You have something?
Yeah. Just
I thought now we could move toward talking about that and the roots of the image.
Yeah.
And then tie this back to Japan, because we're talking about the kind of value that people get in this aesthetic, and the escapism and the possible value of that kind of escapist experience, or from a different perspective, the ways in which maybe it's not necessarily cathartic. But why is it that it has to be an image of Japan? Why is that? I mean, to build off Sarah's question about why is it a girl and who is this, but also why is that particular feeling and the kind of things that people want to get out of these images and this aesthetic experience, why is it linked to images of Japan and a particular kind of fantasy image of Japan? That's kind of the questions I have in my mind right now, but Derek.
Yeah. The best in thinking about this for me, and I say this with the disclaimer of, if this is only coming from my position, this is only coming from, my own personal experiences with lo-fi hip hop, and that doesn't paint an opinion for, our listeners or everybody else where, even you guys might disagree. But my boiling down of where this comes from, the image of the lo-fi girl and what they're doing and studying and things, to me, it absolutely, and even in the history of Chilled Cal, absolutely comes from Whisper of the Heart. And the main character within that story and sort of kind of coincidentally what they're even pursuant of throughout the entire movie. And so that GIF had become really popular, and Chilled Cal even originally used that GIF as sort of a placeholder for these study beats that they were making. YouTube later came in and said, hey, whoa, ban Hammer because copyright content, and so now Chilled Cal has an original a character that's on stream with a rotating background as far as what is existing outside that window. Something else to
For the audience, can you put up? So I had never seen Whisper of the Heart. I just watched it this week as homework.
Oh, it's already, they're already looking at it.
Oh, that you got the image there. Okay, good. So that was the original, and then through the because YouTube took it down, he had to make his own version. But the inspiration was Whisper of the Heart. Yeah. You guys all seen it?
I have.
I still haven't. I have an idea about it because I looked into it so I could just at least have an idea what we're talking about. But please, if someone wants to fill us in about who that girl is, I would love to know more.
Yeah.
You'd seen it most recently. I just realized I pointed like straight down at you as far as my Zoom layout. But you'd seen it most recently, so I would love to hear, you know, sort
Okay.
of your synopsis of Whisper of the Heart
Yeah.
for our viewers.
Yeah. Van, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it just yet, so yeah. So please go ahead.
I highly recommend. I just watched it for the first time in the past couple of days. It was one of the Ghibli films that I had never seen, but I'm putting it among my top Ghibli films. I think it's really wonderful. Highly recommend. The idea is basically a coming of age story about a middle school girl. Well, that's the long and short of it. As she's like a young girl who is kind of obsessed with reading and books, especially fairy tales, and she's sort of got her head in the clouds and isn't studying for school enough. And she kind of, anyway, spoiler alert, falls in love with this boy, and who is an aspiring violin maker. And she's inspired by his ambition, and she decides to try to become a writer and writes this short story called Whisper of the Heart. That's where the title comes from. And then, I don't know, comes of age, whatever.
Yeah.
The details aren't that important. But some of the things I thought were interesting are there's a running motif through the movie. The theme song is Country Roads. You know, the John Denver song?
Yeah.
It's the opening credits play the English version, and the closing credits play a Japanese version. And basically it's like, and she's trying to produce a translation of Country Roads into Japanese. It's one of the ongoing motifs. She lives in the extremely urbanized western suburbs of Tokyo. And basically, thematically speaking, it's like this young woman is looking toward Europe and to America for some kind of inspiration. Oh, okay, I'll try to keep this quick. Of some sense of like reality and authenticity to lend meaning to what she experiences as like a totally alienated urban life. And is toward that end is taking inspiration from the song Country Roads, John Denver, which I find kind of ironic in the sense that, and Derek, maybe you can put up some of the images I sent of like, there's all these stills of her sitting in her room working on either her translation of the song lyrics or her short story. All of this like intensely alienated but intimate interior images where she's working hard and stressed out, not particularly chill, but is drawing inspiration from her kind of exotic fantasy of America. And now we're looking at these images based on the images of this young woman, of her sitting in a room being stressed out, but now we're projecting our exotic desire for authenticity in face of our alienation onto this woman, young woman who's trapped inside working really hard. I find that kind of darkly ironic in the sense that at least she's like thinking of outside, whereas we're looking at these images of someone trapped inside working eternally and saying even that seems better than where we're at. But anyway, the one other irony I think is, sorry, this is a digression. You know, you guys know the song Country Roads, Country Roads. Mm-hmm. Apparently the song, John Denver didn't come from West Virginia. And the songwriters also weren't from West Virginia. They're from Massachusetts.
Okay.
And originally the lyrics were supposed to be, take me home to the place I belong, Massachusetts. Okay. But they decided that wasn't catchy enough, so they went to West Virginia instead.
Right.
Which is to say that there's, as it were, there's no there. There's no actually authentic origin. It's all just imagining other places. But I still find it kind of dark that whereas she's imagining this beautiful sort of idyllic pastoral landscape as authentic. We're looking at an image of a middle school girl who's trapped in her room working eternally and saying, that's how I want to chill out, is by looking at this.
Yeah.
I know I'm talking too much, but the last gag I'm going to present here. Later in the film, she's doing research for this story that she's writing, and about it's a fantasy story set in Europe, a fantasy version of Europe. And she's doing historical research in the library and finds this picture in a history book of a young, it's like a prince who's in prison carving violins and looking up to the light coming in his prison window. Can you put that up, the still up, Derek?
Yeah,
That's
just a
there.
moment here.
Which she identifies with this guy who she's got a crush on in his grandfather's basement carving violins. But I also think that it's kind of darkly ironic there. That, I mean, the film is very upfront about the fact that there is a kind of imagery of imprisonment and being trapped. And the image given there in black and white is of being trapped and working eternally, but then being inspired by the light coming in the window, which gets to this kind of tension that I'm interested in exploring. Sorry to talk on for so much there. Everyone should all watch the film. It's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I second watching the film. I second taking an opportunity to listen to Chilled Cal if you haven't had the chance before. We arrange these things pretty short term, you know, otherwise it would be amazing to try and pull in Chilled Cal into this conversation and see, you know, what some of their opinions might be on that. And so if you're out there, we would love to, you know, chat with you and mingle with you about, you know, some of these topics. But, you know, what I've gathered in all of this, and I'll say a short thing, and hopefully we'll have a moment for a few of our listeners' questions or our viewers' questions. But you know, I personally, I didn't develop an answer for myself, and I think about what you said earlier. You know, Tom, what you said, Sarah. You know, about, you know, it kind of being okay with the ambiguity, and I think that's kind of just where I'm at. Is and that's fine. You know, I think. The everything about it, the nostalgia, the nujabes, the tribute to anime, the everything that extends off of each of these topics are different things that I participate in and I enjoy orbiting. And so, yeah, that's my statement on that part.
Yeah. No, I feel like this has been a really interesting conversation. Van, did you have anything else to add in here? I feel like I wonder if your own personal interest in this type of genre kind of led you to become so passionate about bringing it to others. And I wonder if you could also, I mean, I know we have so few minutes left, and like maybe say like 4 minutes. I would love to know what it is about Japan that at least everyone in this space feels a place that they can escape to. Why is it that place? Why is Japanese music and anime sampled in lo-fi hip hop, not only with the image of anime, but like what is it about Japan? Why does this come into this kind of more, I hate to use the word Western so much, but to this Western kind of dialogue?
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, and I'll make this as short as possible. But I do feel that escapism is such an integrated part of our society. As a people, we really tend to either look really far into the future or really far into the past, and there's almost no sense of being in the present moment anymore because no one wants to be in the present moment because the dire circumstances that we're constantly facing, and it's only getting worse. So Japan, I think, and this is actually tying back to what Derek said, we do project this like Oriental fantasy into Japan specifically because it's one of the farthest places from the West that we can go. There's almost no farther than Japan. And so we kind of attribute that to this exotic, this almost kind of forward-thinking lifestyle that they have over there. And I think being over there, you kind of get a sense for like being in a different kind of timeline almost, because it doesn't feel like normal life when you're over there. The moods, the experiences, the themes, everything is almost like futuristic for me when I'm over there. It's really interesting, and that's what I attribute my my like passion for Japan. It's just being over there. It gives you a sense of almost like being in the future. It's the farthest I could ever imagine being from where I'm from, and that to me is powerful, and it kind of motivates me to, continue trying to do what they do over there, to have this kind of inspiration that they have, and that's it for me. And I appreciate you guys letting me talk about it.
Oh my gosh, Van.
So humble.
Yeah.
We
No,
love you. We love you, Van.
Love you guys too.
yeah, that's a wonderful answer. And I feel like I understand too. I mean, I think that all of us who study Japan or have, interest in arts from Japan and things, it is a place that our minds escape to when we want to feel happy. I wonder if Derek and Tom could so quickly also chime in on that before we have to wrap.
Yeah.
I've talked too much already, so I'm gonna let Derek take it.
When living here in the U.S. and having anime, your only outlet for anime and Japanese culture is coming through television, coming through any games that you may or may not known it as Japanese culture at that time. I think the media in the 90s, before then, today, all the time does a really poor job conveying what a sourced content is and say, where it might, what other things go into that and what other things are included with that. Sometimes that is unintentional. Sometimes that happens by way of localization, where we are taking content that is entertaining and we are adapting it to the country that it's being broadcasted in, be it a game or anime, and I think that contributes to getting a specific version of what, whether you're not forward thinking about it, but whatever your consciousness is kind of taking in as far as what exists in Japanese culture. And it isn't until you take those extra steps in choosing to explore those boundaries and explore the language and the different aspects within that culture that you can find a deeper appreciation of it. I think that based on what Van said, that's kind of where I'm at and why it might be say kind of consumed in a specific way, largely by a lot of people, and it takes that extra effort into wanting to expand what it is that you might be taking in all the time.
Totally, yeah. Thanks, Derek. I empathize, sympathize, and all the above with all these thoughts here. Tom, anything to wrap us up real quick on your perspective?
No, I talked too much already. I just appreciate having the chance to be here and talk with you guys. It was really fun.
Well, I also just chimed in with Kevin. I'm like, we might be just a touch running late. And usually
No, it's okay. I'm also keeping tabs on Kevin to see, if and when he is going live, so we can, begin hosting. But while we're waiting for that to happen, I think we might have time to answer maybe one or two questions from some of our viewers, and then Van, Tom, I would highly encourage hopping into the chat once we're out of this conversation here, because I think there were a few questions that were specifically directed towards City Pop and etc. That I think you both might be interested in.
Sorry, I'm not on Twitch right now. Can you just send the link so I can get on?
Yeah.
I'm really technically incompetent.
Yeah. I'll get that squared away for you. But let me see.
I want to say while you talk, Derek, or while you look for that, just to let everyone know that before our time ends here, we have Suntory with us tonight, and you really want to hang out for their portion. They're going to be joining Kizuki in the next hour, and we're just so jazzed to have them here, as we all love Suntory and we love Japanese whiskey so much. So while we kind of fish for some of your questions, just note that tonight's kind of extra special. We have a lot of really cool stuff still happening after this chat, so don't go anywhere. Derek, what are we talking about?
Yeah, well, let's see. I'm trying to some of these questions. I'm trying to parse.
And also just note that everything that we're doing here is because we really want to connect with everyone, and we're just so happy to kind of have these conversations and dialogues in our isolation together. So, and if you want to support the Japanese Arts Foundation, who kind of puts this together, you can always donate on our website, and we appreciate it.
Yeah. Actually, you know, when it comes to the questions, they are specific for you, Van. One of the ones, this one, we'll see what kind of time we have. This one's kind of a big one. So it says, what is weird about city pop is that it is one of the most capitalistic genres, and that once the bubble burst in Japan, a lot of people's record collections, be it vinyl or CD, were sold, and for a long time those city pop records were worth next to nothing. Neo reissues from Japan alone go for hundreds of dollars, and even some of us pressings that are new go for $40. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is ironic? Does that alienate potential fans?
Well, you have to imagine that when the bubble burst, people were actually throwing out their vinyl, and this was at the also the apex that CDs were coming into play, and people thought of CDs, and to this day in Japan, they prefer CDs over anything. And so people were just throwing away their vinyl records because, again, they thought it was obsolete technology. And so the prices are inflating now, and that has to do with people are wanting physical media again, tapes, vinyl records, and this all plays into that escapism of going back into a different time to where things were more material. MP3s didn't exist back then. It does alienate people a lot because prices are inflating to astronomical prices. There's records for $400 now, which is just absurd. But it just shows you how shrewd Japanese record store owners are, that they are aware that there's a growing demand for these objects, and the West is willing to pay for them. People come to Japan specifically for these records, and they are, they're not going to be cheap. They know that we want them, and it is going to alienate a lot of people. But it's just the name of the game. That's capitalism at its finest, right there. Yeah.
Right on. I wish to our viewers, I wish there was more time to answer all the questions that you had. But again, we're going to do our part and sort of try and hop into the channel and interact with you. I want to thank y'all for being here. Sarah, you look like you might be readying to say something. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
Just kidding. What about our fun Animal Crossing edition that we maybe haven't had the chance to mention? Did we make some Animal Crossing goodies for people?
We did. Do we want to mention it now, or do we want to circle back? Oh, we can talk about it now.
I don't know if we have another time, so maybe we should just jump it in.
Yeah. So while we're closing things down, we're going to shift over to Kizuki in just a moment here. But with each one of these streams with Tokyo House Party, we always try to add something into the content that allows you to participate with us and some sort of interactivity among yourselves. And so we have another contest for you. And I'm going to get this image ready. Sarah, do you mind explaining what our next contest is? I'm going to get this image up.
Yeah, totally. So this one's a bit more open-ended and is not such a heavy lift in terms of having artistic skills with your hands. But we are asking for you to share with us the place that you escape to and where you find comfort right now. And we know for a lot of you, that's Animal Crossing. And I think you can see Van's Animal Crossing after this. This is not unknown to us here on this channel too. So what we're asking is if you would share on your Instagram or Facebook an image of your place that you're escaping to right now, what that looks like. And that could be your Animal Crossing house. So you can take a screenshot of that and post it, hashtag Tokyo House Party, so we can find it. And once again, we're just going to take in all those submissions and randomly pick someone to win another prize. So yeah, share with us the place that you escaped to because we want to know.
Yeah. And as far as goodies for the people at home, since some of you might be playing Animal Crossing, we've created some Animal Crossing QR codes that you'll be able to download directly into the game and add in either any one of our mascots into the game as, a painting, tile, a t-shirt. Please use them as you see fit. I'm going to keep that image up on the screen for a good moment so that you get a chance to either scan it, but we're also going to be putting that out on social media. So if you don't get it here, you won't miss it. And then I can even bring it back up while our stream is pending and waiting for Kizuki to go live.
I'm
Cool.
telling them.
Great. So with that said, I'll just keep the QR codes up while we're signing off ourselves. But I would say everybody wave to our viewers before I put this image back up, because with that said, I do want to thank everybody. Wrong image. I do want to thank everybody for coming in for this conversation, asking all these questions, these deeper questions that I hope our viewers at home and ourselves got to think a lot about. Yes, please, thank you guys for coming. Please, any closing words from any of you?
Thank you so much for Van and Tom. You guys are both experts in your fields, and I know you're busy even in isolation. I know this to be true. If two people could be, it'd be them. So thank you both so much for joining us. And
Well,
again, I know that we want to see your ideal escapes too. So you all better enter too.
Thank you guys so much. It's been amazing. Tom, amazing talk. Sarah, always a pleasure. Derek, what can I say? You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool. And with that, viewers, please don't go anywhere. In just a moment, we'll be going live. We're going to be hosting Kizuki's channel so that you have a chance of seeing a live food demo. And then we have some content from Suntory that I think you'll really enjoy as well. So stick around. Oh,
2 weeks is ASIN.
Yes, in 2 weeks, we have an ASIN event coming up. So
Yes.
Just stick around, please, and enjoy. So we'll be right back. All right, so
Sorry, guys. There's so much to cram in there. I was like, oh, we had a bunch of enough.
Sorry to talk on so long.
Oh, you're fine, dude. Come on.
It was really fun.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that was great.
Everyone had
Everybody,
great
how's it going?
contributions.
Yeah, no.
Van, I want to talk more about the history of lo-fi.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Wu-Tang Clan and you look at even further back, electro music in the late 80s was starting to form with hip hop and Africa Bambaataa. And like, hip hop had always had this like element that fused with other genres. And that continuation went on with jazz music in the 90s with Japan, because I think they're the ones who took jazz music and hip hop and kind of put it together and made it make sense. And I think that's where that came from, because I mean the West, we had electro hip hop with all these b-boy styles and stuff like that, and then it evolved into the funk music with Wu-Tang Clan and so forth. So I think that hip hop's just going to continue to fuse with other genres in the future. Like I know vaporwave, people are making vaporwave hip hop now. Like it's the elements of hip hop, you can almost put them to anything and it'll make sense as long as it's well made.
Yeah.
I think.
Hold up. Wait, I'm trying to see.
Are we still on or?
No, I'm trying to see because I have it all muted. But it says they can still hear. They can still hear us. Which I mean, we're just having our pending conversation while we're waiting for Kizuki to go
Tom,
live.
when this is all over, Tom, we should get together and talk about this. You have a lot of insight, and I think it would make a really good conversation.
Yeah, I love the comments that you emailed Sarah, and that the whole spiel you gave there was really.
Tom,
I'm way more articulate in writing for sure.
Tom, hey guys. Oh, can we switch over here because they can still hear us?
Yeah, I know. I just mentioned that, and I was like, oh, they're just getting bonus clips right now. As far as the conversation goes, which is really funny. So no, actually, I can. I muted the mic, but it seems like it's still coming in behind the screens. They said, let me see. How about now? Still on. That's so bizarre. Well, okay. While we're waiting for Kizuki to go on, since they can still hear us, I'm gonna take the channel, offline, and then we'll be able to host Kizuki. Anyway, what a weird technical hiccup. This didn't happen before, but thank you guys for still hanging out with us and still listening to us. In just a moment, like I said, we'll be hosting Kizuki, but please don't leave the channel. Kizuki will be hosting here in a second, and don't go anywhere.